Happy Thursday, everyone. So, I just decided to test this out because I'm bored and I'm having an interesting day. So, I'm probably just going to wait till people come on here before I talk about it. But oh, hi Vivek. I'm waiting for more people to come on before I start talking more, but it's good to see you. Hope you've been well. I've been up to a lot. I actually was in Los Angeles last month, so um, I'm trying to make my way down there and hopefully get some attention on the screenplay that you helped me with. So I've been trying to make advances there. But I also been up to other things. More people come on. I was going to talk a little bit about my book and um, some of the things that have been going on in the last few weeks, particularly as it pertains to being an activist and the things that I've experienced and witnessed in the last few weeks. March was a very interesting time for me. Um, Everything from releasing a new book to trying to find connections in LA for the screenplay to documenting as press and having to deal with Los Angeles Police Department, to now probably being part of a class action lawsuit because of LAPD. It's almost like a movie over here. Have to have somebody adapt and write a screenplay about my life story whenever I make it. Hello, I'm waiting for more people to get on, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been going on and that I've been posting about recently, which have kind of diverted from my regularly scheduled content, um, and into a lot of activism related things lately. But I'm still obviously doing creative things, and I do still have a new book that just launched on March 13th out, which is the sequel to The Softer Side of Texas. I actually have a copy right here. This is my newest book. And yeah, it's the sequel to a book I wrote like 13 years ago, honestly, called The Softer Side of Texas. And yes, I know that that's a long time. I had a lot of things that I've worked on in between those time periods, though, and a lot of different experiences that kind of put a disruption in my publication schedule. But this book series is going to be a trilogy, and the final book I expect will probably be released next spring, and it's going to be called Grit Beneath the Grace. This one here, it takes place chronologically like 5 years after the first book, so it's not too far from where things, ended in the first book, but it's also not like completely on the same timeline as us. So, I haven't talked about it as much as I usually would because I've been doing other activist things, but I really like the pages. Like, the format and the printing was really pretty for the chapter headers. And we decided to do more like discreet cover this time. The last cover, it wasn't that it wasn't indiscreet or anything, but it had a woman in the center, and then when we redid them, I decided that maybe we should just do a landscape to see how that worked. But yeah, the Texas frontier and the dusty atmosphere is important, so it works for it being a contemporary romantic suspense. And honestly, this trilogy, when it's complete, I might try to adapt into screenplays, because I think that it could really, especially for people that like shows like Yellowstone or Landman, this could be good source material for that. Incredibly good source material for that. And also low production cost, because it's mostly just like if you have like a dusty desert area, like there's a warehouse scene, but mostly it's just the landscape is the primary like setting. The setting is really simple and it wouldn't cost a lot, because you mostly just need there's some action scenes that would cost, but for the most part it's kind of a character driven story, and the atmospheric conditions, same thing, like the tight bonds and family that's willing to ride or die, which is the same kind of concepts that they have in like Ozark or, like I said, Landman. And so it's kind of like a gritty, not necessarily fully country story, but there's definitely those influences because of the Texas landscape. Yeah, so it's one I'm proud of, especially because when I first wrote The Softer Side of Texas, it took me 14 days to write the entire 52,000 word novel. And it came out of nowhere. It wasn't planned. I didn't plot it out. I just got this story idea in my head and I felt compelled to write it, and it just poured out. And I didn't anticipate that it would ever be a series, let alone like have a sequel. I always thought that it was just going to be a standalone, but so many of my readers fell in love with the characters in the first book, and that seems to be one of the ones that people really gravitate towards really enjoying the most, is the dynamic between Ivy and Aaron. And so I got requests, are you going to write more books about them? Are they going to be seen again? And then Dust Traces Never Fade just kind of came into, and then I realized when I was writing the second book that it wasn't going to be enough, that I was going to have to write more to really summarize, and that the last book is probably going to be the most difficult to write, honestly, and pull most on the heartstrings, even though they've all been highly emotionally volatile scenarios, such as this one, a child gets abducted from a car rider line while, going to preschool. And in the first one, of course, there is an abduction. And, I don't want to give spoilers, but that ends up being like one of the main catalysts that leads towards some of the trauma basis that is seen and overcome in the second book. But there's still other things that I know that I could extend and expand upon. So that's why I decided I'd make it a trilogy. And yeah, The Softer Side of Texas, Dust Traces Never Fade, and Grit Beneath the Grace will be the third book. So, yeah. So I've been talking a lot about, like, some of my posts lately have been a lot about things that are happening in America, and they are not good. And I think most of us probably already know that the things that are happening on the world stage are quite crazy right now. And a lot of Americans are not in agreement with these crazy things that are happening. And obviously I'm one of the vocal ones who is on that side of the page. The right side of history, if you will. I always knew that I have been someone who was an activist since I was a little girl. I am actually an INFJ and I'm an Enneagram 9, which means I'm a natural advocate. Like, that's my personality type. I was born to witness the wrongs of the world and be willing to say something and do something about it. And I've been that way since I was a child. It in fact caused me a lot of problems, especially being raised in some cases by some very strict evangelicals. And bad things happened to me because I was a smart mouth, as they would have put it. Or told not to backtalk. But it wasn't that I had a lack of respect, it's that I had a lack of respect for anyone who I could see doing abusive things, who thought that because they were in a position of authority, they should be respected. I'm not sorry for that, even to this day. I'm 41 years old. I've been saying that since I was probably 4 years old, and I'm still not sorry for it. No matter how many times they tried to make me or tried to correct me on it, I was never sorry for telling somebody off if they were doing something I could perceive was abusive. Ever. And I never will be. And the repercussions that come from that are obviously, yeah, I've endured abuse, I've endured disciplinary actions, even though I honestly didn't really deserve them, but that's the way that corrupt governments work. And that's the way that corrupt family cycles and family units work. And so when you've come from a family that has narcissistic personality disorders and other kinds of toxic disorders where people have certain family structures and agreements that they have within their core unit, it does something to you. And you know, if you're someone who's not going to stand for it, then you become a scapegoat. And that's actually exactly how narcissistic nests work. So when you think about these things and all the stuff that I'm talking about, it's because I've always known and had that activated personality type when I seen something wrong. Like the first time I picketed, I was 9 years old because they were going to build a new subdivision across from us, and it was going to tear up wetlands in Eugene, in the West Eugene, Oregon area. And I was not about to see our ducks and our Canadian geese not have anywhere where they could come for their seasonal landing. And some of those places, the funny thing is, years later, some of those places they did build on, but there are protected wetlands that are in the same vicinity. So activism works. And I was a kid doing that. Just kept doing it. Then I got moved from Oregon to Tennessee, and I lived in the Nashville area for a while before I was moved to Columbia. And I lived there for a long time before I moved to the Maryville and Alcoa area, where I lived for a little over a year before I moved to southern Alabama. And I lived on the Florida-Alabama border for a good 5 years before I finally moved back to Oregon to stay. And I've been here now for, well, almost 13 years. So I've been back, in Oregon where I was born for a while. And as soon as I was compelled to go into writing, I kind of had like a call to action moment where I felt like I was supposed to be a voice for those who have none. And it was very clear to me that I already had talents and skill sets that could be used to do that. I've always been a really good writer, really good at poetry. I've been a natural storyteller since I was a little girl. I wrote my first book, and I actually made it. Like, I took construction paper and I stapled it together and I drew the illustrations and I wrote the story, and it was called My Family. So I've been just that, like, a creative writer and a literary person and just a book lover my entire life. And it just led to me, further becoming very convicted about the First Amendment and free speech and the right to assemble and the right to, make grievances against our government, and all these things that I learned through time as my personality developed just led me to where I am now, to the point that, being an author matters to me, and my screenplay matters to me. I want to get it marketed. But also, it would be for absolute naught if I did not do the activism related to press and independent journalistic work that I do, which is the reason why I made Authors of the Resistance, which I co-founded with Beverly L. Anderson and was the brainchild name, anyway, of Kerrigan Byrne, one of my friends. So I've worked doing this for over a year with the AOTR, and before that I've worked with other entities and helped build them up through protest season from 2020 forward, and it was just inevitable that I would end up in a situation where I witnessed kettling and being pressed. I was arrested, but then I was released free of charge because I was there documenting. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was within my rights, and actually my ADA rights and my First and my Fourth Amendment rights were entirely violated. So these situations are mostly so important right now because they affect all of us in the long run. I mean, obviously with Project 2025 and being a writer and the things that they're already, cracking down on Amazon against us, and, Meta taking down Alyssa's account, for example, which Moxie Rose has been talking about. These are all things that eventually, as they erode more and more rights from underneath of us, will make it where we all lose in the long run. And so if activists and protesters don't go out there and actually make a stand against these things to let them know that this is unacceptable, then we all end up standing in a boat that's going to sink. And that's the reason why I became a voice for those who have none, why I'm a documentarian. And I am here to inspire, educate, and entertain, but that includes sharing information that is very uncomfortable at times. And I've never made any qualms about that. And I don't want to make a bunch of different types of accounts because I already manage a bunch of different types of accounts. So instead of having to compartmentalize all of my life, like, you guys get the authentic me. Like, this is who I am. I am a writer. I am these things. All of it's here, open, and for you to see, because I have no reason to hide anything that I'm doing here. So yeah, I know that some people have actually stopped following me and stopped, being my friend because of what happened in LA, and they didn't even listen to what I had to say. And so now I've been making these videos, and I have had, of course, trolls come on and, maggots say rude things, and, comment ad hominem, of course, saying things like, you look like a clown and look at your makeup, which, by the way, thank you. I'm happy I look like a clown. They're very amusing, in case you didn't know. But, these are the kinds of things that you have to deal with these straw man arguments that these types of people have, because they can't actually engage in an intellectual debate and discourse in a respectful manner, because they know that they're going to be proven wrong. And then when they're proven wrong, they don't want to accept the facts anyway. So it's basically like arguing with a brick wall. You're never going to get through. You might as well just walk away. So, yeah, that's what I came on here to say, and I just wanted to talk to you guys for a minute and explain some of what's been going on and how I've been trying to process everything that happened in Los Angeles as I continue to work through the chaos of every day. But until next time, I hope you guys have a happy Thursday night and a great weekend to come.